Reflections on the Good News of Jesus Christ according to John for the fourth Sunday of Lent. Have you ever noticed how many blind people Jesus heals? Those stories are all through the Gospels. With the possible exception of lepers, Jesus heals more people of blindness than of any other condition. Why so many blind people? Was it something in the water? No, I don't think so. The point Jesus is making, and it's very obvious in today's story, is that sometimes people who have the gift of physical sight are quite blind to the realities of God. As the old country song puts it, there are none so blind as those who will not see. And sometimes those people may include you and me. We are among those who may need to be healed of blindness, and we may not even know it. Jesus heals the eyes of a blind beggar using mud and saliva. At that time, people believed that saliva could heal. By using mud, Jesus is helping us to recall the story of God using mud to create Adam, the first man. Here, too, there is a new creation. Jesus is making a new person. St. Paul calls the baptized Christian a completely new person. Then Jesus tells the man to wash in the pool of Siloam. That is his baptism. After his healing, he has changed. His friends and neighbors don't recognize him. Is it really him? But he was blind, and this man can see. Once we are baptized into Christ, and as we grow in our understanding of what that means, we too should change. Some people might say, "You're not like the way you were before. You are hardly the person we used to know." And that is what they should be saying. But because the man's neighbors were not satisfied, they bring the now formerly blind man to see the Pharisees, the guardians of Orthodox religion. Jesus had healed the man on the Sabbath, and the methods he used were against the letter of the law. The conundrum, of course, is that if Jesus was from God, he would not break the law. And if he is a sinner, that is, he is not from God, how can he do these things? Sinners cannot do the work of God. For the Pharisees, sin is breaking the letter of the law. For Jesus, sin is doing an unloving thing, breaking or hurting a relationship. It is a distinction we need to keep in mind. It is a sin to violate one of the commandments, not because we break a law, but because we have failed in the love of a brother or sister. And we can sin even when we do nothing at all for someone who is in need of our love. That's what we call sins of omission. The Pharisees now ask the blind man his opinion. For him, it's all perfectly clear. Jesus is a prophet. That is, his actions are from God. He measures Jesus by what he did, not by what the law says. But the Pharisees cannot accept this. If they did, they would have to accept Jesus and his teaching also. So they do not even believe that the man was born blind. Prejudice can blind us even to facts. So the Pharisees try to get the man's parents on their side. Maybe they will admit that the blindness was only temporary. But the parents know very well that their son was blind from birth, and they do not deny it. But they are afraid to say anything. They know that if anyone says Jesus is the Messiah, Such a person would be expelled from the synagogue and will no longer be part of the community. In such a tightly knit society, this is not a price the parents are willing to pay, even for their son. Many Jewish converts to Christianity must have had the experience of being expelled by their communities. Some Christians over the centuries and down to our own day have had this same experience. So the parents say their son is an adult. He can answer for himself. They cannot afford to identify themselves with Jesus against the authorities. The Pharisees again ask the man to tell the truth, meaning to tell them what they want to hear. We know that Jesus is a sinner. He cannot do these things. This evaluation is based on their interpretation of the law, which they regard as supreme. But the man responds, I don't know if he is a sinner. I do know I was blind, and now I can see. The Pharisees ask for the umpteenth time, what did he do? The man says, I told you already, but you will not listen. The man begins to mock them. He is more daring now, not afraid. You want to be his disciples too? He asks them. Inevitably, the Pharisees become angry. They insult the man. You are his disciple. We are Moses' disciples. No one knows where that fellow Jesus came from. This is an example of the irony found in John's Gospel, where people say things which have a meaning of which they are unaware. For it is true that no one knows the origins of Jesus. He is the Word who has been with God from the beginning. He is God. On the other hand, some of this truth is quite obvious to this simple, uneducated man. He exclaims, how strange! He cured me. Sinners cannot do such things. God does not listen to sinners. God listens to those who respect him and do his will. It has never been heard before that anyone cured a man born blind. If Jesus is not from God, he could not do this. The Pharisees now become even more angry and say to the man, you were born and raised in sin. You want to teach us? The words are cruel and indicate a refusal to accept that people can change and be transformed. We too may tend to condemn wrongdoers. We may even condemn ourselves. But fortunately for each one of us, that is not God's way. And they expelled the man from the synagogue. This is what the parents feared. But their son is made of different stuff. Jesus hears the man has been expelled and goes in search of him. Jesus asks him, do you believe in the Son of Man, that is, the Messiah? And the man replies, tell me who he is, and I will believe in him. He does not immediately recognize Jesus in the flesh, for this is the first time he has seen him with his new sight. Jesus says, you have seen him. He is talking with you now. I believe, Lord, the man says as he falls down in worship before Jesus, whom he calls his Lord. Now he sees with the eyes of faith. Now he is a disciple. The disciple is someone who knows and can see and accepts Jesus as his Lord and Savior. Jesus says, I came to this world so that the blind could see, and those who see become blind. At this, the Pharisees asked Jesus, do you mean that we are blind too? And Jesus responds, if you were really blind like the man, you would not have sinned. But because you say, we can see, you are guilty. Those who sin, those who refuse to listen, those who are proud, are the really blind people. The self-righteous Pharisees, who externally seemed to be so devoutly religious, who thought they could see, were the real sinners. And the man born blind, who accepts Jesus, is the one who can actually see. Jesus has shown us God's way. And we give thanks most effectively by passing on the love Jesus has shown us through loving all our brothers and sisters, whoever they may be. We were once living in darkness, but now, through our baptism, we are living in the light. We are to be children of the light, to reflect that light which has been given to us. As Jesus tells us in the Sermon on the Mount, you are the light of the world. We might say that we are living in the light to the extent that God's light shines in us and through us, giving light to others. The fruit of the light is found in all that is good and right and true, St. Paul writes. But the good and right and true can only be seen when people are good and right and true. There should be no dark corners in our lives. If we are people of the light, people of integrity, we are not afraid of the light. We have nothing shameful to hide. We are totally transparent. For most of us, that is something of a problem. But let us keep striving to become people filled with light, the light of truth and goodness and love. For that to happen, I need to first acknowledge that I have some blind spots, areas in which I cannot see the goodness in others or in myself, areas in which I need to change. I need to look at poor people and see more than rundown houses and littered streets. I need to look at the homeless and see more than dirty faces and ragged clothes. I need to look at people who are different in any way and see more than the color of their skin or the way they move their bodies. I need to desire to see Jesus and the gospel ever more clearly so that I can form my life around Jesus and the gospel. For all of us, our Lenten prayer and sacrifice should serve to take away our blindness so that we can look into the hearts of others and love them as brothers and sisters. In union with the no longer blind beggar in the gospel, let this be my prayer today. Lord, that I may see. If you would like to read today's gospel in its entirety, you will find it in the 9th chapter of the Gospel according to John. Thanks for listening.